Hello again and welcome to Zestology. I'm Tony Wrighton and I am on the beach in Portugal. And I realise that might be quite annoying, but you're going to have a lot of that over the next few months on Zestology, so you might as well get used to it. And today's podcast is devoted to behaviour change.
Hi, I'm Tony. I'm an author, presenter at Sky Sports, and years ago I went to the jungle and got ill. Very ill. So this is my podcast adventure to find more energy. It's packed with biohacking, science, health tech, supplements, and some of the most well-known experts on the planet.
This is something I spent 4 months of my life doing with electrodes glued to my head so that you can do a lifetime worth of meditation.
Decide what you don't give a fuck about, which is something you don't care about.
Some of it gets quite out there.
I had some stem cells sent up to my house that I had stored, and then I injected myself with mannitol.
And we even hack hangovers.
Alcohol is poisonous. So is water and oxygen in the wrong dosage.
So that's my podcast, Zestology. Live life with energy, vitality, and motivation.
Yes, it's a repeat guest, Maneesh Sethi, on the podcast today. He's been on Zestology a few times. He's the founder and owner of Pavlok. An incredible wearable device that is just breaking new ground all the time. There's so many interesting things that they've done with Pavlok in terms of behaviour change and creating new habits, especially when it relates to sleep. But it's not just all about sleep. In this podcast, we cover so much ground, and I've made some notes, so I want to tell you what we cover. We cover chess and mindset at the start of the podcast. I love a bit of chess, and so does Maneesh. Then we look at behaviour change, the Pavlok, the incredible wearable made by Maneesh's company. We talk about NLP, pattern interrupts, which I talked about last week on the podcast, anchoring, and lots more as well. Here is Maneesh Sethi on Zestology.
Manish, we're on. How are you?
Hey, Tony. It's awesome to be back on this podcast.
Yeah. So last time we spoke, I was in England. You were in Colombia.
Yeah.
Today I'm in Portugal, and you are where?
I'm in Warsaw, Poland right now.
Okay. So
yeah. Always nomading. Our company's remote, and recently I took a vacation earlier this year for about a month to Thailand and Japan, and man, sales went up. Like, I'm the bottleneck. And then I came back and sales started to go down, and it was so clear. It's like the team asks me questions, and then when I don't reply on time, then they just do it, and then stuff worked out better. So now I'm just like, maybe my best act and good CEO is to GTFO, you know?
I guess that would make you a little bit introspective. So have you actively tried to step back based on that data?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I don't feel as bad anymore about it. Like, I used to feel really bad about missing meetings, especially when I was on a bad time zone. But I had no value in a lot of these things because, like, I've been fortunate enough to build an excellent team, and maybe that's something we can talk about today, because that's very, very significantly different than how it was the last time we spoke. Like, the team wasn't as developed, especially like those executive core people. So they needed my background, they needed my feedback. You know, I was smarter than my staff, which led to me being causing bottleneck problems. So anyway, that's been a big change, and it's been a really nice few years.
Yeah, and since I last spoke to you, I mean, I was mostly doing TV presenting last time I spoke to you, but now I'm mostly doing authoring and podcasting and living here in Portugal.
That's
and
awesome.
One of the things I really struggle with is the fact that I've always been very happy doing things myself, and I sort of slightly arrogantly think I'm better at a lot of things than other people, and actually have to admit that I'm really not that good at some things, and I should be able to hire other people to do it better, and I struggle with that.
Totally, man. Totally. So this year, I really felt this way, man. This year I started playing chess. And so like I played it a little bit as a kid, but my friends had a tournament. I got really into it. We're talking like hours a day. I hired a coach. Like, I was hardcore training. And then I went to New York City to go compete. And there's nothing that makes you realize like how small you are than when you sit for a 3-hour classical chess match against an 8-year-old girl from New York City who's got a Beanie Baby toy and just massacres you with like a 7-move checkmate. I'm just like, oh my God, how am I you realize that you're never going to be the best at everything.
Yeah. That's great. I love chess too, actually. I know you're coming to Portugal, so when you come, we'll enjoy an afternoon in the sunshine playing chess.
I'm in, man, every day.
Yeah. I love the psychological component of it, because I think there's a lot going on between competitors as well as on the board.
Oh my God. Like, yeah. So there's like okay, there's one guy who he won a lot of the games. So these tournaments I'm in were like under 1200. So like more than 80% of the people are like under 15 years old.
Mm.
And this one adult guy, 3 hour games, just stared. He
No.
didn't with an 8-year-old or 9-year-old child. I was like, the balls on this guy. Like he scared the hell out of them. They lost, but it was freaky, man.
Have you?
Sorry. Sorry, what were we saying?
Yeah, I was just going to say, have you read Josh Waitzkin's book, The Art of Learning?
I did when I was young. I
Yeah.
can't recall much of it, but I recall being very interested in when I
Oh
was
yeah,
younger.
you got to go back to that because it's all about the ability to learn different disciplines. But a lot of it is him becoming a child chess champion,
Mhm.
and you'll just geek out on all the chess stories. You'll love it.
I'll definitely do that one. I'll say one thing. I'm not sure. We seem to be digressing without a clear topic right now. So I guess if we're going to get on
Don't worry,
topic,
I'm happy to digress. We'll get back on track in a sec. Yeah.
I'll tell you one cool thing that happened to me from playing chess that I noticed. So like when you're doing like chess puzzles, you'll be given this board, right? And often the goal is to checkmate, but sometimes you're supposed to trap the queen, or sometimes just take a free pawn. You don't really know. And I've been doing like thousands of these puzzles, and something started to click from that towards business, where I started to realize that like if you realize that the puzzle you're looking at doesn't always have a clear external finishing goal, you start to realize that you have to approach the problem with different lines of thinking to attack a problem. So like something that came into my mind was that for my company, I've always been very resistant, for example, to raise capital. I've always felt like Pavlok was my baby, and I didn't want to lose control. And taking capital has all these other problems, and so it became this yes or no question. But by getting into chess, number one, I realized that I could be interested in other things than my business. And then as I was working through the potential lines, like the chess puzzle of my business, I was thinking that if you see a world in which maybe Pavlok is not the only thing I do forever, 8 hours a day for the rest of my life, maybe chess is something I wanted to do, then a smart thing to do is to consider Pavlok an asset instead of like a life. And if it's an asset, maybe the best way to make that asset survive by its own and give you freedom would be to raise capital. And I was like, that's an interesting like line, because if you look at the puzzle in a different way, in the same, like I feel like chess kind of made you rethink business in a lot of ways.
Yeah. That is really interesting. And the counterintuitive, I mean, I often muse on the counterintuitive ways of actually getting stuff done. For example, since we're in Portugal, the temptation is to say, I've only got a certain amount of childcare a day. I haven't really got enough hours in the day. Therefore, I certainly shouldn't be going to the beach for the first hour of my precious day and just having a dip in the sea and going for a walk. But of course, I did that this morning, and I've been so on it ever since because of the counterintuitive way that I spent the first hour of my day.
That's beautiful. What's that quote? They say, meditate for 10 minutes every day. If you don't have time, meditate for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's that's like kind of the rule of thumb. And yeah, definitely. I think that's awesome. So yeah, man, let's talk. What are we going to chat about?
So, well, I have been dwelling a lot on the role of mindset in things that you wouldn't necessarily think mindset is important for, specifically health. And that is why I really wanted to talk to you today, because I really think that what you've sort of devoted really a lot of your time to is optimizing mindset along with accountability. And maybe start by sort of giving a brief overview of Pavlok, because it's been 2 or 3 years, but then say, so, what you're thinking about this area at the moment and how you muse on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot have changed. So, okay, I'm Maneesh Sethi. I'm the founder of a company called Pavlok. If you've seen the video, I'm wearing the newest version of our shot clock line, Shot Clock 4. It's the first one that has a screen, heart rate.
Oh my God, I've seen you post about this. I've seen it on your site. Such a cool idea.
It's on Indiegogo right now, and it's one of our best. So I'm very proud of it. What's cool is that we have 2 lines of products, but they are the same kind of category of human behavior training devices. So realistically, just to summarize this for the smart listeners out there, it's basically a smart dog shock collar for humans. The device gives you vibrations, beeps, and electrical zaps when told to. We can create sensation, touch, and zap. When combined with the app and our program, this leads to the ability to change and adjust specific habits. So our one of our number one habit by far is waking up early. So our product is Shot clock, the one that is on my wrist, is now being released for specifically waking up. And essentially, it's a smart alarm clock that's silent, that never disturbs your partner, and trains your brain to wake up in the morning with alertness. What we do is we give you you ever been like tapped on the shoulder and you wake up with like a surprise? If you imagine like somebody touching you with an electric zap, you're going to wake up, obviously. Like, you'll wake up. So what our product does is it vibrates first and then it zaps after a while. You have time to turn off the alarm in between. Heavy sleepers will sleep through the vibration the first day or two, but by the second or third day, their brain understands that a vibration means a zap will come, and they instantaneously wake up to the vibration with alertness. After about 5 days, most users never need to be zapped again. So that product is the alarm clock specific feature set. But when you tie that to our healthy habits around meditation and around fitness and health, the same applies on the other end. So like for forming good habits, we have a program in our app where you can set commitments and bets. Other users or your family and friends are able to control the zap if you are failing, and you can win and lose money and rewards by achieving your goals.
Great.
Similarly, from meditation perspective, we have a few meditation audio sessions, and we teach you how to use it with your meditation audio in order to help increase the efficacy of meditation. Long story short, if you are like you ever like meditate, your brain gets lost and starts thinking, and you lose focus on your breath. If you zap yourself a couple times, whenever you catch yourself losing focus on your breath, your reptile brain just shuts the F up. It just listens, and it becomes like your calm score will shoot up on a EEG device. So those are some of the use cases for our product. Yeah, that's what we do.
So obviously my background is NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and I teach that to other people. And one of the core NLP 101 techniques is anchoring. And this it is like Pavlov's dogs for humans, isn't it? And I'd never thought of that use case, which is zapping yourself when your brain wanders. That's brilliant.
Yeah, totally. And as you say NLP, it makes me instantaneously think that like if you started to set up specific vibration patterns to associate with a mental state and try to train yourself to cue into that state, you would be able to like trigger it on demand, like kind of like an NLP reminder device. I kind of like that idea as a use case. One thing I've been doing with it that I find really interesting is that I wrote this little custom integration. Every time I get a Slack message from my team, it messages me the name of the person who messaged in Morse code, like the first 3 letters. And I don't speak Morse code, but after a couple of days, you quickly realize like which ones are coming from somebody who you don't need to check Slack, and like somebody who's coming from the one that you definitely need to check Slack right now.
No way.
Yeah. So like the little kind of like anchoring, like you don't need to know before your brain can register sensations as input. And one thing I'm really excited about on this device, which we haven't yet fully fleshed out from the programming perspective, is it's not just Zap anymore. It's a TENS device. You ever use those electric massager?
Yeah,
things?
yeah.
So we can create multiple sensations like squeeze, tap, touch, pressure. And that's like not just Zap, but those as well. I feel like gives us a lot of interesting ability to do NLP or adjust mental thought processes. That's a really interesting thing that we should talk about later on, especially if you have any interest in NLP still, because that would be a fun little side project to test out.
Oh yeah. I've got probably the second or third best-selling book on NLP in the world. So I teach it a lot. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And my mind was just going crazy when you were telling me about that. I was thinking, wow, all the different ways that you could use that, specifically with anchoring, but also state management and so many other potential techniques that we look at in NLP. And in terms of you mentioned a customer integration there. I guess you've got this hardware, and then you come up with all sorts of different ways that it could be applied.
Yeah, so this is kind of the interesting part about the company too. That's what I'm good at. I'm really good at coming up with new ideas. Unfortunately, as a business gets to be larger, that can sometimes be a negative when you're starting new projects and you haven't fully fleshed out your own. So I'm going to be honest, I don't use an alarm clock. Like I've woken up to Pavlok maybe twice or 3 times because I always have the trouble of the opposite. I want to sleep more. And it's definitely led to like this lack of me working as hard at the company, because our company's kind of gone down this route of a product which is no longer like my deepest core love. You know, waking up is interesting, but human behavior is more interesting. That's why I'm so excited, because the next version of it is the same hardware, but the new software will be what we're talking about, which is Pavlok with the screen and heart rate with more sensors, because then we can start to throw this stuff back in, have our app store, create new apps, create new integrations, because it's like we kind of stumbled on this alarm clock thing. You know, it's the one that just clicked. And my biggest fear is that we pigeonhole ourselves as that for the rest of our lives. So I'm really excited to start expanding this to new different use cases. And man, if I can get another shot clock, bro, I will be rich. So that would also be really cool.
Yeah.
So if we can figure out that other market.
I had a look at the Indiegogo. It looks like it's going pretty well anyway.
It is going well. It's been a really good run the last few years. Ever since we really clicked about 3.5 years ago, right at the beginning of COVID, we started listing on Amazon, and our Amazon sales just
wow.
So like it really, really was a game changer. We went from tough times to not tough times. It's been a very good couple of years.
Excellent. Yeah. So yeah, behavior change. That's so fascinating, and I guess it's quite interesting how behavior change can combine with a wearable. I mean, I've sort of long wanted the perfect wearable that does all the sort of metrics like heart rate variability, but then combines that with lifestyle. So for example, I mean, there's a lot of insights you can get from being able to know that when you're in a meeting with a certain person, your heart rate goes through the roof.
Yeah.
Because firstly, you're getting sort of knowledge about how stressed you are around that particular person, which is helpful. But you're also getting knowledge that, you might need to do a little bit more of that meditation before you meet with that person, or state control, or whatever it might be.
You're going to love this. I was thinking about exactly that use case. So at the top, it might be a little hard to see. You see those two little holes?
Yeah, I can see them. Yeah.
So one of them is a flashlight. You can use it at night. The other one is like a real-time LED that you can set for heart rate or for heart rate variability.
Yes.
And so if you set it for heart rate, for example, imagine, or actually they're going to be the same in this case. If you set it for heart rate or stress level, you're going to be able to see at a glance. It'll be red if you're in a bad heart rate state, or it'll be purple if you're in a calm state. So you'll be able to at a glance look down and be like, oh shit, that's red. Something's awry.
Wow.
And I haven't tested it yet, but I have a feeling that being able to have a visual input of your stress level might help you be able to kind of calm yourself and relax, especially if you get a notification at the same time.
That's cool, because I've been wearing an Oura ring for quite a few years, which obviously measures heart rate, at night, and heart rate variability at night, not during the day. And I'm now at the stage where I can normally wake up, and from how I'm feeling, I can tell what my heart rate variability is going to be from that. Not always, but most of the time I can sort of tell. So if you could do that during the day, that would be very beneficial.
Totally, because I mean, like Aura, I love it because of the form factor. I'm going to say that they have I don't wear things on my wrist at night, and I think that is a big downside of the Pavlok use case. We have a new armband for that specific purpose, but it's still, I'm not going to say it's as elegant as the ring. And the thing about it is that you kind of get a lot of the information pretty early on. Like if I wasn't grandfathered into their lifetime $6 a month program, I don't think I would continue to pay for it. Because when I drink, I have a bad heart rate. When I don't sleep that much, I have a bad heart rate variability, and my score is low. But there's only so much you can get out of that. It is a nice thing to double check and look back on, but all of the wearables, I think, still are missing that whole next use case, which is it's not just looking at what you already did, it's influencing what you will do. So one of my dreams has always been to integrate Pavlok with lights. I've always wanted to build, actually one of our products we're building now will be in 1.5 to 2 years, is our first non-wearable. It's a bedside smart lamp for wake up, like a smart light.
Right. Yeah.
And I've always dreamed of when you go to a room, you say, Spotify played this song and, lights turn on this color. But I feel like it should be the opposite, or I want to build something that's the opposite, where I have a meeting coming up in 5 minutes. So my light starts to flash a light because it's informing me of information. I have a study session on my calendar. So Spotify starts to automatically play pump up music 30 seconds before, to create these, rather than the products doing what you want it to, the products knowing what you need and creating that environment through sensory input, sound, light, and touch. I think would be a really, really, really cool future of where we go. And I think it's important for people who are trying to change their habits and their mindset, because like you just said, creating these Pavlovian locations, or creating these you use the correct word, the anchor, is such a thing that you don't do naturally. Instead, the world kind of creates its anchors for you.
Yeah.
An example I told on last time we were on this podcast, I'll tell the short version, is that we had this girl who had super severe depression. And she asked us if we could help. I said, try this. Every time you catch yourself in the thought loop, zap yourself and text me where you are. On her third day, she caught herself earlier at breakfast. She realized there was a kitchen flower vase in her house that when she was 16, her twin sister had a birthday party with her. She got no gifts. Her twin sister got all these gifts. She said, have this flower vase. That flower vase was signaling nobody loves me, nobody cares. She threw it away, broke it, and like the depression was gone. Like
wow.
She right, like a lot of it, like that anchor loop was built for her. She didn't create that loop. So on the vice side of that, the vice versa part, somebody who wants to take control of their emotions and their emotional state has to do kind of like a training thing. Like Michael Phelps always listens to the same music before he jumps in the water. In the same way, if you're trying to like coach yourself out of depression without using medicine, one technique that might be very smart is to kind of have like a meditation plan where you have like maybe a special song and a mantra that you meditate on while you try to conjure up feelings of high status or high quality, how you feel, and kind of make a habit of that. So that when you catch yourself later in the day in the negative thought loop, you play that music or you think of that music mantra in your head to re-trigger that feeling of strength. And that's like such a core, like you have to train it. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
This podcast is brought to you by Viva Rays. And Viva Rays is the all-day protection that is provided by Clip and Go, a world's first 3-in-1 artificial light protection, reclaiming nature's dark and light cycles in one pair of glasses. Definitely worth checking out. Viva Rays, go to vivarays.com. That is vivarays.com. Feel free to tell them I sent you as well. And yep, I've got my pair of Viva Rays tucked away on my bedside table, and I tend to use them when I remember in the afternoon, certainly by early evening, and then it's a must before you go to bed. And if you forget and open the fridge door or something, it's very annoying. vivarays.com. Now back to the show.
When you were sort of taking that very macro view and you were saying how much of life and much of the tech that we've got is set up towards doing one thing, but not necessarily looking at behavior change, I do think that in terms of, the devices that we have are so very addictive and they can really help with productivity, but they don't necessarily always help us to be our best selves. In fact, the opposite. I mean, in any creative discipline, and in fact, almost every business, the ability to sink into something deeply and do deep work and cultivate that sort of depth of thought is really important. But that is not something that our tech helps us to do. So if you've got a device that can help you with behavior change, that could be an absolute game changer for people.
Totally. I think that's interesting. Yeah, we haven't really perfectly targeted our product as like a anti-social media or reduce. Like basically it's been an alarm clock for 3 or 4 years, but I'm really stoked because the technology, it works. It does that. I have a Chrome extension here that limits my Facebook and Instagram usage and a Apple shortcut.
Yeah.
So like we just haven't pushed it hard. So anyway, I think it's a really interesting and exciting use case for our new products.
It's not just social media. It's anything that helps you to cultivate your best state. And that's why I'm really excited about what you're doing with Pavlok at the moment. I'm going to look out my Pavlok because I love it and I haven't used it in a while, but I want to try it with what you've been talking about today. But there's another NLP technique that you've heard of called the pattern interrupt, which is exactly what Pavlok is doing. And with I've been thinking a lot about mindset and health, because in my world, the biohackers, they're so good at sort of getting 95% of the way there, but often they can't get the 100% because they're so type A. They worry about their health so much, they can't actually relax enough and accept what's going on to let their parasympathetic nervous system kick in and start to heal. And that's where the mindset really comes in.
That's interesting. Actually, I'm super curious on this because I've been noticing as I get older, and especially dealing with older people, they're much less fluid and much less open to testing and trying new ideas. And I've been at a debate and a crossroads in my mind where like, are people fixed in the sense of like, if you're 50 or 45 and like, you don't really want to change that hard anymore, but you decide to go for it, can NLP help you kind of rewrite those no matter your age, or does it tend to work better for younger people versus older people?
Oh, I'm sure it can. But ultimately, it's all about curiosity, isn't it? And that's interesting, isn't it? Because when my son is 4 and he's curious about everything.
Oh, totally.
And then when you're 84, it's quite easy to say, I've seen it all before, mate. I know the
Mhm.
answers to that one, and you don't,
Yeah.
because you never do.
True.
But
Do
if
you
you
notice
can,
yourself doing that?
yeah,
They say that like after 30 years old, basically like nobody like changes, or very rarely your personalities and people change. And I've kind of noticed a little bit of hardening in my own head. Like I used to be down for hostel living, and now I prefer a nicer place. I don't really
yeah.
want to go do these all-nighters anymore. I'm curious if you've noticed that as well in your own mind. Not just like obviously you're not going to go party when you have kids, but like in the sense of like, do you find yourself kind of doing your old habits a lot and not really learning, or do you still find a way to create that drive to learn more?
Well, I've always been by instinct someone who I wasn't brought up to be a massive risk taker, so I have to cultivate that a lot. And by that, I mean trying new things. And
Hmm.
I'm actually quite good at it now. And we just moved to Portugal a few weeks ago. We sort of really
Totally.
stepped outside the system doing that. But I have to work at it pretty hard, and I always did. So I don't think I've got any. Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't want to stay in hostels anymore, and I thought of
Yeah,
nothing better when I was 20. So
totally.
there's probably a limit to it, isn't there? I mean, I guess that's the same with you.
It's the same with everybody. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's like sometimes like it's nice seeing like my nephews and stuff because they still have this like youth in them, and it's cool to see the eyes through them. And I think that's kind of what people say about having children. They get to re-experience it. Um, so
yeah.
it's pretty cool. And I think it's important because I mean, I'm probably the least likely person to get rigid based on like the kind of person I was initially, and it happens to me. So that means it most likely happens to everybody. So if you're younger than 20 or 20, like younger than 30 and listening to this call,
Yeah.
like, dude, take the trip and go do the crazy stuff now because it's really like you're not going to be crazy when you get older. And then, yeah, if you're older, like be curious. It's okay to try something new. In fact, I think I should take that advice as well.
Mhm.
So like, yeah, that's awesome.
I think you're doing okay. But that comes back to the pattern interrupt again. When there's any sort of thinking that's too rigid, what you want
Mhm.
to do is and in terms of health, it can be simple as your pattern is your rigid pattern is that you keep thinking about your symptoms. And because you keep thinking about your
So true.
symptoms, your a fight or flight response is on and you can't heal. And the pattern interrupt could potentially just be saying to yourself, stop every time you
Yeah.
notice yourself thinking about your symptoms. And that's where I think it could be really interesting using the Pavlok as well, because that is a powerful pattern
Dude.
interrupt when you're giving yourself a little zap.
That's so intriguing. So my girlfriend has a Pavlok and she uses it to wake up every day. And like she is the epitome of what you just described, like always overthinking symptoms in her head. And like, I don't get it. Like, okay, you have a cold or you're sick or you're feeling bad. Like, why go to the doctor in these minor use cases or think about it all the time? Like, I need to go to the doctor and get a scan because, like, what? It's a cold. You're gonna be fine in 5 days. Like, for me, that's natural. In fact, to the extent that I don't even notice when I'm sick because I don't even feel my body. I'm always in my head, I think. And like her, on the other hand, is like overthinking about these body concerns, and that's an interesting issue because if she wanted to use the Pavlok to get over it, oh man, I would love to. That's like a no go for her. But like if there is anybody, for example, listening who does have that exact issue where they are like overthinking pain and like I would love to chat with you and we could talk about figuring out something because I would love to test that with you because I do think that there's a very specific way to make that work. I think it would be 5 to 10 day
Yeah.
program.
We should have a look at that together because I work with people a lot on mindset and health,
Oh, awesome.
and
Yeah.
and the whole thing, the foundation of every time I work with anyone is, okay, we need to stop this hypersensitization and sort of stimulation. We need to calm down the nervous system, and that always involves a pattern interrupt and acceptance. Because the
Hmm.
opposite of worrying about your health, and by the way, I'm like your girlfriend, not like you.
Hmm.
I tend to worry about my health, and that led to burnout. And the opposite of that is sort of saying, all right, I accept it. Okay, I'm going to be okay. I'm maybe not perfect at the moment, but accept. And it's so, again, it's so going back to what we said at the start. It's so counterintuitive to say, I've got a bit of a headache, or I am a bit ill today, but I'm not going to worry about it. That's very
Totally.
counterintuitive.
Man, I've been really bad about going to the gym recently, and I've also been feeling really really tired these days. And like, finally, I just did the thing I always do. I made a bet with my girlfriend. I was like, I'm gonna donate $50 if I don't at least go to the gym and do one set. Of course, I went to the gym and I did my full workout once I got there, and it was incredible how you leave it and you have more energy than when you sleep a good night. You know what I mean? Like you can sleep poorly and go to the gym and somehow you're re-energized in a weird way. it comes down to all these things that at the end of the day, like all of us are always like this. Advice is always so obvious, right? Like meditate, exercise, eat healthy, drink water, do those basic habits. Most of us are not doing those first things in the first place. But then once we are, we kind of just get locked into these loops and we never start like we don't ever do pattern interrupts to change our lives. Like when I travel, I like that because it serves as a natural pattern interrupt. It has both goods and bads for me. So I'm a heavy eater. And like I gain 40 and lose 40 pounds almost every year. And it's always based on the first actions I do when I get to a new city. Like if I get to a new city and I go to sign up for a gym and I exercise once, I'm gonna lose weight that trip. If I go and I buy some McDonald's, it's gonna be a bad trip. And like that's fine for me. It works for me because I'm cool with a 3-month binge. I don't mind it because I'm gonna have a 6-month health. And also I'm not that cool with it and I'm trying to fix it. But like most people never ever experience lives outside of their own natural like territory. In fact, I would posit that a large percentage of people like never have been alone and had to deal with lives on their own. Like they meet somebody in high school, they get married, they don't even know who they are. And so when they don't even know who they are, like, man, my habits rub off on my girlfriend and her habits rub off on me. And if we had been together since we were 15, I wouldn't know that I wasn't her. Like I was a different person outside of her. And I think that that's kind of super important, that a creation of a pattern interrupt. And I think that that can be as simple as hiring a coach or, I think it's really deciding to do something different. Like that has to happen when a change is going to come.
Yeah. And then the final component to behavior change that I think is really important in health, but in everything is, and I know you mentioned this briefly earlier, I wanted to ask you about it again, is accountability. For example, me and my wife have had 2 WhatsApp groups for a few years where we message each other every day with the amount of minutes that we've worked out and the amount of minutes that we've meditated. And, and it sounds like you've got something similar going on with Pavlok. And if you do want to stop those 3-month binges, it would be some sort of accountability group with your other half, whereby if you're overeating or you're doing the habit you don't want to do, for 3 months, there's just a gaping hole in that WhatsApp group and you'll start to feel guilty and she'll know about it.
In fact, that's exactly what did happen. She was getting pissed off with me and she knows that when I track my calories, I always lose weight really rapidly. And so she did. She basically forced me to. She's like, let's do it for 5 days. Just come on, do it. I did it. She didn't fucking do it. I did it. I checked in on her. I was like, you liar. God damn, I'm down 6 pounds. I hate you and love you. Anyway. But also speaking directly to that pattern interrupt, I find food extremely fascinating there because like, the sugar loop, the second I'm eating, like the first time I binge, like that loop is like, it's like a drug addiction, right? But then I started tracking calories. The second I track calories, logic comes over. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna intermittent fast today because I want to have more food in the evening. And as soon as I intermittent fast and then don't eat a bunch of carbs, like I have a sandwich that's been in my pocket for like a day and a half. It's never happened. Like I eat that shit 22 of them by the time I get to work. So I think that it's interesting how once you adjust the pattern, like the pattern really rapidly self-replicates. So like, if you get a new job, the first 3 days are hard to wake up, but then like you wake up. And like in the same way with food or with the gym, and I think the gym is I'm talking to myself as I say this because I'm doing the food, but I'm not doing the gym. Like if you go there 2 weeks in a row, 3 days a week, I have a whole talk on the process for it too. You start by doing 1 minute, just check into the gym and leave for the first week. Then the second week you do like 5 or 10 minutes, then add up. To cement the loop. If you actually stick through with that, like I recall when I was doing my gym routines for years, like it was as hard for me to not go to the gym as it is for me to floss. You know what I mean? Like the habit becomes like drinking water.
Yeah. Manish, absolutely love it. I've asked you this before, but I want to ask you again. What is one book you'd recommend and one tip for living with more energy and vitality?
Great. Let's see. Let me just check because I was just reading a great book, but I can't call the name. 1 second. There are a few. I mean, dude, you should see my. I just bought Learn NLP, so I'm sure that'll be awesome. I got like 40
did you just buy it? That's great.
I bought it like a year ago. I have been reading a really, really interesting book, and I'm just trying to find the name.
I can't believe you bought Learn NLP while we were recording this conversation. That's impressive.
Oh, totally, man. There was an interesting book I read that I've been reading. It's called Business Wealth Without Risk. I can't really recommend it or not. I'm pretty early into it. But it's pretty interesting. It's by Roland Frazier and Jay Abraham. It's about buying businesses and investing in them.
Okay.
I'm gonna give one book that I think people should read that if they haven't. It's not a business book at all. It's called it's a book by Ted Chiang. It's called Exhalation. It's a book of short stories. The movie Arrival was based on his short stories. It's incredible. I just recommend it.
Honestly, like that for me, that's the best way to relax, to read fiction. So I'm writing that down. And I'm also delighted that you just put £5 into my pocket for buying Learn NLP. And then
the book title is Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chiang. Chiang, Stories of Your Life and Others.
Ted Chiang, right. And then what about one tip for living with more energy?
I think based on my most recent advice, sleep well and go to the gym at least once or twice a week. At least exercise and get your walking in, because it's a no-brainer. Just do those things, drink some water, and you will feel better.
Yeah. It's as with all sort of biohacking, it's the unglamorous stuff that really works, isn't it? But if you can use the Pavlok to help, that'd be even better. So where can people find out more about you and Pavlok?
Sure, check out pavlok.com, pavlok.com. And if you go there, check it out. You'll see everything on the website. And you know what? I can send you I'm going to create you guys a discount code too. It's going to be Tony Wrighton, just to your full name. And you guys can use that for a discount of 20% on anything on the store.
Oh, amazing. Awesome. Manish, so nice to chat again. And I'll see you in Portugal next time.
Thank you. Can't wait.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you to Maneesh. Remember to use that code if you'd like 20% off. That's Tony Wrighton, all one word. And thank you for listening as well. It is a windy day here in Portugal, so I hope you can hear me okay. I'll be back next week with Zestology. In the meantime, please do check me out on Instagram. That is at Tony Wrighton. And there's posted some content about dopamine recently and various Portugal-related content as well. I'll talk a little bit more about the grounding and the swimming that we're doing in Portugal at some point soon as well. But thank you for listening to Zestology, and I'll see you next time.